Let's discuss Windows display settings, and we'll focus on resolution, color depth, and refresh rate. To get to the display settings window, we need to open that from the icon in the control panel. So we'll right-click on our Start button and go back to Control Panel. And one thing real quick, here we have what's known as Icons mode, where we see all the individual icons. And you can change the mode here, where it says View By, and we can select large icons or smaller icons if you want to fit more on the screen. But you also have category mode, which might come up by default depending on how you access the control panel. And this has 8 categories in Windows 8, but it just kind of collapses everything together into categories. CompTIA expects you to know both category mode and, more importantly, icons mode for the exam. And for the A+, you should know all of the individual icons. A little bit about the different modes within the control panel. And what we're looking for is the display icon. So we'll open that now. That brings up the display window. And you have a lot of options here of things you can change, including the size of all items. And it's shown here. You can increase the size of all items. If you take a look, when I click to larger, everything becomes bigger, or we can go smaller, and it becomes smaller. And you can go even farther with the custom sizing options. This is very common if you work with different resolutions on your screen. I'm going to leave it as medium. You have the option to change the brightness of the screen, calibrate the color if applications aren't really displaying color properly on your display. You can project to a second screen. You can adjust clear type text, which helps you to read a little bit better, makes your text a little clearer and easier to read. But again, the ones we want to cover here are resolution, color depth, and refresh rate. So we're going to go to Adjust Resolution, and that'll bring up the screen resolution portion of our display window. And from here, we can change the resolution of the screen. Now, what is the resolution? That is the amount of pixels on your screen, and it's measured horizontally by vertically. And a typical type of resolution that you'll see quite often now is 1920 by 1080. And that means that we have 1920 pixels going across and 1080 pixels going up and down. That's also known as 1080p full high definition. I have this set right now to 1280 by 720, which is regular high def, otherwise known as 720p. And we're doing that so it's easy to replicate this screen so you can view it. So you can change the resolution here, and you can apply that to your laptop, your desktop, and to secondary or external monitors. You can also adjust how your displays are shown here on this screen. And so resolution is something that you might need to change so that you can show more content on the screen. If I had a big Excel spreadsheet or a big database or a audio-video editing program that needed to have a lot of open space, then we'd have to increase that resolution, most likely up to this. Or you might also see 1920 by 1200, which is common for editing, but that'll depend on the type of monitor that you have. The second item is color depth. And to get to color depth and also refresh rate, we want to go to the advanced settings right here. So we'll click on that, and that'll bring up the window for that. Color depth is the amount of colors that can be displayed on your monitor. And you can control that in some computers. This computer can only be run at one particular color depth. And if we go to List All Modes, we can take a look and see the options to change resolution and also this color depth right here. But the only option is 32-bit. And that basically means about 4 billion colors. But some other computers can go down to 16-bit. And that may be necessary if you want to save on resources, or if you're dealing with an older application that doesn't work very well with 32-bit color. Also here we have the refresh rate, so we can modify which refresh rate we're using. On this particular laptop, we're normally at 59 or 60 hertz. But some computers can be increased up to 120 hertz, or 240 hertz, depending on if you have the right video card and the right monitor that it's connected to. Now, what is the refresh rate? The refresh rate is the amount of times that the screen is repainted per second. And so the higher the refresh rate, the more fluid the screen is going to look. For example, if you're watching sports on TV, if you have a 60 hertz screen, you may be missing a little bit. When a baseball is hit or a football is thrown, it might get a little choppy. But if you have 120 hertz or 240 hertz, that ball going across the screen will look much clearer and much more fluid. So that's the idea. It's the amount of times that the screen is repainted. And you can change that refresh rate here in the List All Modes section, or you can go to the Monitor tab and change the refresh rate here. And again, we don't really have much in the way of different options here. Normally we'd run this laptop at 59 or 60 hertz, depending on the resolution that's running. Now, sometimes on some systems, you'll also see the color depth down here, if you have the option to change it from 32-bit to 16-bit. And in the rare occasion, you'll see 24-bit. But generally, the choices are 16 and 32-bit. Now, with this particular laptop, we can also go to the Intel High Definition Graphics Control Panel, and we can change the refresh rate from there. And then you can go to Intel's third-party program and make all kinds of changes from this utility as well. And you can usually access this from the notification area on the lower right-hand side of Windows. So you can customize how the graphics work on this here, but you could do it in Windows as well. So there's a little bit about the display settings and resolution, and color depth, and refresh rate. Make sure that you practice these types of things on your system and take a look at your operating system and find out where you can make these modifications, and definitely practice them when you get a chance. So that's the end of this sublesson.